Welcome to the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast, where we hope to inspire you to embrace your God-given gifts, skills, and passions in order to lead with confidence. We want you to remember that you are fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God, and you are fully loved by Him.
You have been designed on purpose by God with unique gifts and passions in order to love and lead those around you. I'm your host, Esther Littlefield, a pastor's wife, business owner, mom, and writer.
And I'm Esther's co-host, Holly Kane. I'm a wife, mom, and business owner. I also write at hollykane.org, where I focus on my passion for women's ministry.
Together, we chat about important issues that Christian women leaders face. In addition, we interview other women just like you who lead in various roles, from church to community to business. Through this podcast, we offer you encouragement, tools, and resources to help you on your leadership journey. We are so glad you're here with us. Hey friend, welcome to episode 50. Today, I am here with Holly. Hey Holly, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. We're excited to be talking to you today about wellness. We're continuing in our series, and in episode 48, we introduced this topic and why we feel like it's a really important thing to be working on as a leader. So if you haven't listened to episode 48, go back and listen. We talked about spiritual and physical wellness in that conversation. And today we're going to be diving into the second part of the conversation and really getting into personal and relational wellness. So let's just jump right in, Holly. We'll start with personal wellness. So what do we mean by personal wellness?
Right. So we mean our minds and our intellect, our emotions, and our mental health. And today we're going to talk mainly about our emotions and our mental health. And we're actually going to, in a future episode, talk about our thoughts and our intellect a little bit more deeply. So today we're just going to focus on those two sections of personal wellness.
Yeah. And I think the reason we wanted to get into this is really because a lot of times as leaders, we can end up feeling overwhelmed. We can have times where we are feeling super stressed out and there's just so much that we are managing. And we did talk about that in a previous episode. We talked about the whole issue of balance in the past, but this is more just kind of being proactive about our personal wellness and how we can take efforts from the beginning to stay healthy.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we get to that place of feeling overwhelmed, it's because we're not really managing our personal wellness. So some of the things that we can see happening when we're in that place, some of the things that we might be experiencing can be stress. Sometimes we have anxiety. Sometimes there can be depression. And again, this is kind of going along the lines of our emotions and our mental health. What are some of the things that you feel like, what does that look like? You know, when we're having those experiences, the stress, the anxiety, what are some of the things that you've seen in your own life or other people's lives where they might be struggling in this area?
Yeah. So I feel like I can talk a little bit more personally than I ever would want to about this. But so I think stress it can be kind of on a range. You know, you have regular daily stress, you have good stress. And then as things sort of maybe ramp up in certain areas or things get a little bit more busy, oftentimes our stress increases. And that can take a really big toll on our personal wellness. So we've discussed in the past a little bit about how to really kind of control that and work on that and sort of the different warning signs for stress. But the other thing for me personally is when my stress gets out of hand, or sometimes it's not even when my stress gets out of hand, sometimes it's just random, but I deal with anxiety. And so personal wellness is really important for me because if I'm not sort of taking care of those things proactively, my anxiety can get out of hand. And, you know, sometimes it just creeps up on me. Sometimes it's not related to anything specific in life. And so sometimes that throws you for a loop. But, you know, it's one of those things that after you've had it for a while, you just kind of learn sort of where your line is, where things are okay and manageable and where things get a little bit hairy and are a little bit more intense or something that needs support or guidance. So for me, that's kind of what it looks like. But other people might lead their stress or different things going on in their life might lead to depression. Exacerbation of other mental health issues, like OCD or that sort of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
So it can take on many different forms.
Yeah, I think that there are times where it's kind of like you said, there's common occurrences. You kind of
Hmm.
know where your baseline is with these
Yeah.
things, and then there might be times where you need extra support. And I know I've had that in my life. I don't think I've really dealt with anxiety, but I have dealt with depression. And
Mm,
I don't think I've actually really talked about that much, but there have been definitely times where I have known this is not normal and this is not
yeah.
a healthy place for me to be, and
Right.
I've needed to get additional support. And so I think what we want to do in this episode is really kind of talk about what are some of the things that we can do as leaders, again, on the proactive side, not
Hmm.
so much on the reactive side, but on the proactive side to take care of our personal wellness, take care of our emotional health, take care of our mental health. And we're not saying that by doing these things that we are going to avoid those other issues that we were just talking about.
Right.
There's definitely times where, we may need more professional support. But some of the things that I have found to be helpful, just in general, for maintaining my personal wellness, one of the things is just finding things that I can do to help me de stress, relax, enjoy, be creative on a regular basis. And not so much those big things that are de-stressing, like Holly and I were just talking about going on a vacation, which sounds glorious. And sometimes we do need like a bigger thing to help us de-stress, but a lot of times it's just the little things that we do every single day. I mean, it kind of goes
Mhm.
back to the habits that we talked about back um, in January, but having habits built into my daily life where I'm doing little things that help me to relax on an ongoing basis and manage the normal stress of life, right?
Yeah.
What's something else that might be helpful for us in this area?
So I think definitely managing our emotions. So emotions are not bad, nor are they good, but letting them be in control is the problem.
Yeah.
Uh, I am a four, and a four on the Enneagram is someone who has lots of big emotions. So for me, emotions are kind of what drive me to do things. I often make decisions based out of emotions and just my gut feeling on things. And so that can lead to some really unhealthy thought patterns and some really unhealthy views on things if we let our emotions sort of be in charge. So working on checking those and figuring out what really is based in
Mm,
reality and what is sort of our own perception of things. Another thing is self-awareness. So being aware of your own baseline, we kind of mentioned
yeah.
it before, being aware of where things are still in a healthy, manageable stage and when things have gone past that, when it's time to ask for support and when it's time to reach out to your own personal support system. So your family, your mentors, your friends, people in your circle, and sort of knowing where that line lands, and when
Yeah.
you get over it, having the courage and the awareness to ask for help. Can you think of any others?
Yeah, I think another one that is really big for us as women and as leaders is just taking time to rest.
Mhm.
So, having regular rhythms of rest. And again, some of our guests have talked about that in the past on how they set it up in their own lives. And I don't want to prescribe a particular formula for anyone, but we definitely do see that biblically there is a basis for having a Sabbath, having a day of rest, and having patterns in your life where you are actually
Mhm.
creating space where you're not filling it up with work or filling it up with a to-do list or filling it up with just
Yeah.
input and all kinds of information all the time. That's something I struggle with because I am a person that likes to do a lot of things and I struggle with slowing down
Mhm.
and just stopping, having silence, having, not doing something. And so this is an area for me that I have to really be more proactive about and say, okay, on Saturday,
Right.
I am not going to do any client work. I'm
Mhm.
not going to do, XYZ. I have to kind of create rules or boundaries for myself. Lila Higgins talked about that in episode 5. She talked about how she creates these rules for herself. And essentially, it's boundaries around what you will and won't do certain times of the day, certain times of the week, whatever it might be. And I actually listened to an episode really recently of the Carrie Newhoff Leadership Podcast. It's episode 260, and I'll put the link in the show notes. But it was from a woman named Ruth Haley Barton. And she was talking about this issue of busyness and how that really is a problem for driven leaders, that when they don't take time to rest. So I want to put the link in the show notes so that you can go take a listen to that, because I think she did an amazing job explaining why we need this time to rest, and then also like just how to kind of get started with having a habit of a Sabbath if you haven't done that in the past. Another way we can stay healthy in this area of wellness is taking our thoughts captive. So it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Holly, about emotions. I think we also need to do it with our thoughts, right? And so for me, I think I have more of a challenge with managing my thoughts than managing my emotions. I tend to be more likely to let my thought patterns get to an unhealthy place and be kind of focusing on negative things or focusing on negative
Right.
thoughts.
They're very connected.
Instead of necessarily, I mean, sometimes there's emotions there too, but the thought, yeah. So again, the Bible tells us to take our thoughts captive and to recognize what's true and to let go of what's not true. So that's definitely something that I feel like I need to do to stay healthy in terms of my mind and my emotional health and my mental health.
Yeah. So one of the last ways that we want to talk about that we can take care of our personal wellness is perhaps getting professional support. And that might mean therapy or medication or, other approaches to dealing with these escalated things, the stuff that has gone past the baseline,
Yeah.
where you're into sort of unhealthy, maybe potentially dangerous places. These are not things that no person should be dealing with them alone. And even with the best support system, sometimes you do need professional support to come in, people who are trained and understand what you're going through from a professional standpoint that can recommend therapies, medications, different things that you can use to deal with these things.
Yeah.
We want to make it very clear that neither of us are mental health professionals. We don't have any specific training in this, but we want to just encourage you that when you get to those points, that it is okay to ask for help, and we encourage that. It's best for your health, your wellness, but not just that, your family and the people around you, your ministry, your business, so on and so forth. It's important to access that help when you need it. So,
yeah. And in a future episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about what to do when you feel like quitting. And that could be when you feel like quitting your work, when you feel like quitting your ministry, when you feel like quitting parenting, whatever it might be.
Right.
And so again, we'll get a little bit more into this topic on that episode. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss that episode. But again, we do want to kind of differentiate between, we want you to know that you and God can discuss and decide when you need to get that extra help. And we are not telling you when that needs to happen. That has to be your decision.
Right. Yeah, I'm excited to do that episode. I think it's going to be a good episode because no matter where you are in this scale or where you are on this spectrum, there are different points when you feel like quitting. And so I think that that's going to be a good episode.
Yeah.
So next we want to talk about what personal wellness looks like to each of us, how we sort of are proactive about taking care of our personal wellness. So Esther, I would love to hear what things you do to kind of stay on top of that.
Okay, sure. So yeah, I have found over the years that I've needed to work on discovering what these things are for myself. And over time, I've just started to sort of accumulate a list of things that I can do when I start to get to that place where I'm feeling like, okay, I'm starting to feel stressed, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed, etc. So one of the best ways for me to stay healthy in this way is getting out into nature. I absolutely love, I've talked about this before. I love bird watching. I love animals. I love being outside. So that is one thing that I can do on a regular basis. Another thing is writing. So I find that when I am starting to feel that stress, that taking time to journal and write is really helpful for me, because just getting out all my thoughts onto paper can really just turn my day around, and it can turn things around. And we talked about spiritual wellness on the last episode, but a lot of times, again, these are all interconnected.
Yeah.
And so the writing often is accompanied with prayer and with reading scripture
Mm.
to sort of process what God is teaching me right now. And I find it so helpful to go back and read what I've written to over time and see how God has worked. So another one is music. I just love all kinds of music, but I have certain bands that I'm a big fan of. So if you don't already know, I love Switchfoot, and they are my favorite. And I just came to realize a few years ago that, like, if I can make it work and if they are in driving distance from
Mm-hmm.
me, that I want to go to the concert, because I find that that is just something that really fills me up. It fills
Mm-hmm.
my tank. It refuels me for just the rest of life. And so to do something fun like that is encouraging. And then just a few other things that are little things are just going out to coffee with friends, or like getting together for a girls' night out. Just those types of activities encourage me and keep me sane. Because, just being able to talk with your friends about
Mm-hmm.
just everyday life, like, it just, I mean, we just, before we started recording, you and I talked for, I won't say how long, but just doing that, I think, even is just a way to stay healthy and to keep my sanity intact.
Yeah, probably longer than
And
we should have.
right. Well, we probably should have been recording, but whatever. Maybe we both needed it.
I think we did.
And then another one is being alone. So I am a complete introvert. So I do have to take time to be alone. And so, again, sometimes that's connected with my regular devotional time. Trying to do that at a time where I can be alone for that is helpful for me. And then when I am in a place where I'm starting to feel overwhelmed or stressed, sometimes I just need to reach out to a friend. Like earlier this week, I reached out to Holly and had a meltdown, and she worked me through it and we moved on. And so, there's times when you have to just reach out, and I find that to be one of the best ways to get through some of the difficulties of life. So,
Yeah.
what about you, Holly? What are some of the things that are helpful to you in terms of your personal wellness?
So I'm just going to comment back on something you just said. I think that we've done a lot of hand holding for each other in the past week or two. We've both needed it.
Yes,
So
100%. And we
yeah,
probably will talk more about that on the What to Do When You Want to Quit
yeah,
episode.
yeah, we will. So I agree with you, Esther. I think that it takes some self-awareness to figure out what things actually rejuvenate you and what things don't.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time and a lot of years feeling like, oh, I should do what everyone else does when they want to recharge. And it's taken a while to kind of figure out what things actually make me feel better and what actually gives me sort of a positive trajectory in the other things that I'm doing. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I have found is just getting out, change of scenery, going and doing something, whatever it is, if it's going to the mall, going out to dinner, heading to the beach or going out for a hike, something like that, really, I need to get out of the house.
Yeah.
And I want to be with people and I want to do fun things together with them. I like to have enjoyable quality time experiences.
Mm.
And that actually comes from I think, my extroverted side. I know most people are one or the other, but I consider myself an ambivert. I need both of those things. So the other thing is being alone. I need to be able to sort of process on my own and kind of think about things. And I like to be in my bed when I do that, laying down.
It sounds glorious.
Yeah. So I know those things seem super contradictory to each other, but I think that just based on what my life has looked like previous to that, then I need that opposite thing. So if I've been doing a lot of ministry things or I've been running and planning events, then I probably don't want to get out for a change of scenery. I want to just be alone.
Yeah.
If I've been working really hard in my business and just sort of slogging it out here at home, then I need to get out. So
Hmm.
I just need to kind of change what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that oftentimes refreshes me and gives me a fresh perspective. The other thing I like to do is just talking to people. I really enjoy processing my feelings with other people because, like I said before, I am oftentimes driven by my emotions. And I really need other people to kind of speak into that and say, look, you're way off, or no, you're right on with how you're feeling. It sort of helps me have discernment with my own feelings. And so that's really important to me.
Yeah.
Another one is taking a day off. Having a day where I can just continually mentally remind myself that I don't have any responsibilities really does wonders for me. Unfortunately, I wish it could be more than a couple hours, but for whatever reason, if I have responsibilities later in the day, I'm constantly thinking ahead about those. So
Yeah.
an entire day off really just does it for me. It really helps me kind of reset and be refreshed when I start back at working or whatever those
Yeah.
responsibilities are. And then one of the other things I really enjoy is kayaking. I have found that that is something that really helps me sort of be with nature, and it's very peaceful. And I just love being on the water. And so I think I would consider that a hobby. And then the final one is to create a routine and keep a routine. I find when I'm having a lot of anxiety and things are really not good, anxiety wise, if I can force myself to stay on a routine, it really, really helps. I'm not a person who loves routine. And so this can be somewhat difficult. But if I've created one that works really well for my life, then it doesn't feel like as much drudgery when I need to actually do it. But when I sort of make myself sort of fake it for a little while, it does eventually help me feel better. And so a routine for me is really important, even though I don't really love it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because
Yeah.
that I think we should have had that in our list of like recommendations
That's
for
okay.
personal wellness. But it's definitely something that I find when I start to get kind of out of sorts and
Mhm.
off my baseline, I look and realize, oh, yeah, I've not been keeping up with my routine
Yeah,
that I want to have.
right.
So it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Hi, friend. I'm jumping into this episode to let you know some fun news. The Confident Leader Club is going to be open to join around the end of June. If you're looking for a way to connect with like-minded women who understand how lonely leadership can be, if you want to grow and broaden your skills as a leader, and if you're looking for accountability to take action on your big goals, then I want to invite you to get on the waitlist now. Those of you on the waitlist will have the first chance to jump in when the doors open again. You don't have to lead alone, and the Confident Leader Club will provide you with the community you've been looking for. Head over to confidentleaderclub.com to get on the waitlist now. Now let's jump back into the episode. Okay, so let's jump into relational wellness. This is our last topic, and this again can be such a huge topic. And we actually did a whole series on healthy relationships back. I think we started it in episode 15, and there are several episodes in a row all about relationships. So again, if you are a new listener to the podcast and you haven't gone back and listened to those, I would definitely recommend it. Episode 15, we dove into this idea of healthy relationships 101, and we kind of talked about the framework that we look at relationships through. So we talked about it as a series of concentric circles, and we had like ourselves and God in the center, in the middle circle, and then next was our closest relationships, and then outside of that was our friendships, and then finally the last circle would be like our community and our acquaintances, maybe people in church that we lead and things like that. So, that center circle really goes back to the idea of spiritual wellness, which is what we talked about in the last episode. Was that's really the foundation of all of this.
Mm-hmm.
If we're off spiritually, then all these other things are going to be out of whack too. It's going to be really hard to have healthy relationships without having a spiritual and a healthy relationship with God. So the other thing that we know is that there's times, just like we talked about with the personal wellness, there's times when things are just hard in
Yeah.
relationships, and that impacts our leadership. And so we talked about that in episode 22. We really went into depth on what to do when relationships are hard. So we don't want to reiterate all those things that we already said. So today, I think we'll just kind of dive into what are some of the things that we can do, again, to be proactive in our relational wellness, and how we can kind of stay on top of this area. So Holly, what are some of the things that you would say are helpful for us as leaders to be doing?
Yeah, so I think probably one of the first things is to invest in your most important relationships. And I think that those would be, your immediate family. So spouse, children, if you're married and you have kids, those are probably your first ones. And then outside of that, maybe parents, siblings, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So those are probably going to be your most important relationships. And I don't know about you, but I find that for whatever reason, those seem to be sometimes the hardest ones to actually invest in. And it's crazy because you spend most of your time with those people and whatever, but that's, I think, part of the reason that, we're just with each other all the day, all the time, day in, day out, that it just kind of becomes second nature. And so it's
Yeah.
not something that you sort of think about, that you need to be intentional and investing with those people. So
Yeah.
it's important to actually make space for investing into those relationships.
Yeah. I would say to creating rhythms and routines for your relationships, for those people that are most important. And like you said, family is usually going to be your top priority, but then even friendships and things
Yeah.
outside of that, again, it might be teams that you're involved in at church or in your workplace sometimes. But I mean, just an example for us is like having a monthly date night
Mm-hmm.
is a routine that we try to stick to. Now, it doesn't always happen. Sometimes it's more frequent, sometimes it's less, but that's like our baseline goal. And then doing a girls' night out, having a family day once a week, these different routines and rhythms will help you to maintain and, like you said, be intentional
Mm-hmm.
about those relationships. For moms, it might mean taking time to intentionally connect with your kids without distractions. I know, like what you said, Holly, when you are in a household together and if you have kids at home, it's like, well, we're together. So we're all hanging out, we're all doing different things. But when I look at some of my days that we are all together here at home, we might all be together, but we might not actually ever be interacting without
Yeah.
distractions.
Right.
And so there's a difference between that and then just the normal everyday time.
Right.
So any other thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think friendships are important to mention here. I have found that friendships sometimes are my lifeline when it comes to certain things. And so keeping those relationships strong is important, connecting with them at least once a week if it's over text or call, or, now that I'm far away, sometimes it has to be Skype from my friends in
Hmm.
Maine, but it is important to continue those and to have it be about mutually supporting each other and being there for one another. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's actually rolling up your sleeves and helping your friends do things, and sometimes it is, like you said, just sitting and having coffee with friends. But those
Yeah.
are important to really invest in, because I have found that some of those friendships, some of those mentor type relationships, those people that I really trust, they have really helped me through some issues and some struggles in that inner circle, whether it's me and God or me and my family, me and
Yeah.
those close relationships. So, as long as those people are trusted and those friendships have really grown and, shown themselves to be true, that's a great place to help in other areas. So, I think it's really important to invest in those. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And there's an episode coming out. I don't think it's released yet, but we had a conversation with Lori Wilhite, who is the founder of Leading and Loving It.
mm,
So if it hasn't released yet, be watching for it because it's really, really good
yes.
conversation. and she's hilarious. But we talked a lot about friendships, and we
Yeah.
talked even about the fact that you can actually build friendships online.
Hmm.
And so sometimes you may not feel like you have a strong friendship network, and there's a lot that we can do. But I think what you said was you really sometimes have to you have to get your hands dirty.
Hmm.
You have to really work at it.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen. Like, we don't just develop these friendships. I mean, once in a while God plops someone into your
Yeah.
life that is like the perfect friend, right? But other times you have to actually work at it,
Hmm.
and you have to continue to reach out to people. You have to make time, be proactive. So again, we're not trying to do a comprehensive conversation on that right now, but
Right.
I love what you said. And I think it is one of the places where a lot of times we as women, especially if we have a business or we work full time and we have a family and we have other things going on, the friendship thing can kind of get pushed to the
Yeah.
side. But sometimes, like you said, it's the thing that is your
Mm.
lifeline in stressful situations.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We also just want to mention like other relationships and leading others. There are several episodes that we've done on these types of relationships. So for example, communication is huge when it comes to leadership, when it comes to relationships, and we have an episode about that, which is episode 16. And then we talk about mentoring in episode 19 with Lisa Pulliam.
Mhm.
And then we also even had somebody talk about step families and step parenting, and that's in episode 21. So again, some of your relationships might be dealing with these specific issues. So I just wanted to mention those as additional resources to stay healthy in those ways.
Yeah. So there's one more thing that I kind of want to mention that is just kind of a overarching theme to all of these relationships, but it's don't live in unforgiveness. So it isn't easy to forgive people, and sometimes it isn't easy to work through those things. But I think it's important to be constantly taking steps and moving toward forgiveness. The more that I've learned about this, the more that I've realized that living in unforgiveness in one relationship affects all of the others, because it
Yeah.
affects you and it affects how you relate to people spiritually, and it affects your mental health. It affects all parts of wellness. And so when you are living in unforgiveness, it can really wreak havoc on the rest of your life, your heart and your mind, those sorts of things. So that's just something from my own personal experience that I think is really important to mention. Just being diligent with all of those relationships to sort of clean out the clutter, clear the air. If there's things that have taken place, really, really working on those things, because when stuff happens in relationships, like we've mentioned, it doesn't just go away, right? So, time
Doesn't just magically
yeah,
resolve.
time does not heal all wounds. Sometimes there has to be some real hard work done. But
Yeah.
I just wanted to sort of mention that and kind of encourage you. I have found that, you can't just magically, instantaneously forgive people. Sometimes God comes down and, touches you and heals your heart in one instant. But other times it's a long, slow, slogging journey to get there. But I think as long as your heart and your footsteps are moving towards forgiveness, that's really the mindset and the heart set, if you will, that we want to
Yeah.
encourage, because it's not easy. And sometimes it takes multiple different steps and talking to different people about it and processing and apologizing, all of those different things. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Okay. So let's just briefly hit on what relational wellness looks like to you and I. And I think some of these things we've kind of already mentioned,
Yeah.
but we can just hit on just a couple habits that we try to have in our lives for our relationships. So, what are some of the ones for you, Holly?
Yeah. So I mentioned it before, but talking regularly, I mean, I think that just maintains the relationship. And I think that I was specifically thinking about friendship, but I find that I have to be intentional about talking with my husband, because
Yeah.
if not, we're just talking about our to-do list, and that
Yeah.
doesn't really doesn't really
It's not
invest
super.
in the relationship. So,
No.
um, another thing is sharing life experiences. I really get a lot out of sort of being shoulder to shoulder with people and kind of just doing life together. And so whether those life experiences are good or bad, just being a part of that with other people, I find is really, really helpful and really kind of fills me up. Another thing that it looks like to me is support through difficult times. I mean, I kind of just mentioned that, but when you go through a difficult thing, like, I don't know if you've ever heard anyone say this, but it really shows you who your friends are, right?
Yeah.
And it really shows you those people who know how to support and know how to come alongside. So that to me definitely shows relational wellness with others. And then the occasional longer periods of time away together, really, to me, I enjoy. So family vacations, husband and wife vacations, friendcations. All
Yes.
of those things are important, and perhaps trying to do those even just once a year is, a really good thing. We have a women's retreat that I've mentioned. That's just a weekend, but I love getting away with my friends and having that sort of intentional time where we're just with each other. I mean, we are at a retreat and we are learning, but we're right next to each other and we're doing it together. So
Yeah.
I think those are really important.
Awesome.
What about you, Esther?
So, yeah, again, a lot of this is things that we've hit on, but I would say in terms of my marriage, definitely having date nights, communicating on a regular basis. I would say a big thing for us is supporting one
Mm,
another and especially encouraging each other's dreams
yeah.
and really just listening when one of us is having a hard time. I think one of the things that I found has worked out really well in our marriage. Somehow, God has allowed it to be that usually, if one of us is really, really struggling, the other one can be the support person
Mm,
and vice versa. So, making sure that you're there, that you listen, that you're just kind of staying in tune with
yeah.
your spouse. Friendship, again, mutual encouragement. I mean, a lot of times it's just those small text messages or,
Yeah.
checking in, how are you doing? And then listening, like you said, listening when someone is going through a hard time
Yeah.
and not jumping in and trying to fix it. Like I just have loved when my friends will just be like, oh, like this stinks,
Yeah.
and they're just there. And then also praying for each other. I think that has been a really
Mm,
special part of a lot of my friendships is when we just take time to pray. And then I would just say parenting is the one of the things that I have found most helpful. I wrote when we were preparing for this episode, I wrote no clue. But Um, but no, I feel like I know a few things, not a lot. Definitely parenting is a struggle. But one of the things that has been really helpful for my relationship with my daughter is just being intentional about taking some times when I am just fully present with
mm,
her, listening to everything she has to say, even when she's going on about dragons and Minecraft and other things that I have no interest
mm-hmm.
in. I have to just listen and be interested even though it's not naturally something I really care about. So another area is like you said, planned family outings, activities where we're just together as a family. That is super helpful too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, in terms of just kind of to wrap this all up and to pull it all together, again, we said this in episode 48, but really all of these areas of wellness are interconnected. So, everything we're talking about it's not just a standalone issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be if you're not healthy physically, you're probably going to be struggling in other areas. And if you're not healthy spiritually, again, you might be struggling in different areas. So, it all connects in terms of how we can be a healthy leader. And so we need to be intentional because naturally things deteriorate, not improve.
Right. Right.
It doesn't just, if you, yeah, we've said that before.
And then the last thing is try not to focus on changing everything at once. This one's a big one for me. I decide I'm going to have a whole new life tomorrow and I change everything all at once. And then by tomorrow, I have the same old life I had the day before. So
Yeah.
if you're like me,
Yep.
don't focus on changing everything at once. Focus on the areas maybe that are causing the most havoc on other things. I don't want to say necessarily in crisis, but the thing that
Yeah.
is at its worst point. Take that
Yeah.
and really do things to work on that. we were sort of talking before, I've had one of those things sort of happen to me this week. And I told Esther, I really just need to be working on some of these little things because I'm not at a place where I can be doing some of the big things. So the past few days, this past week, I've just been focusing on what are the little things that can make positive changes that will help me get some wins, help me get some hope to actually make the bigger changes that I need to make. So, yeah, it's just all about focusing on the small things and the things that you can do to really move the needle forward, even though they don't feel super big. Because changing everything all at once is not easy. It's not for the faint of heart. And frankly, I don't know anyone who can do it all at once. I know it's hard for
Yeah,
me
yeah.
personally, but
And we did talk about that in a previous episode too, when
yeah.
we were in our goal series, and we were talking about really the key
Hmm.
to reaching your goals is
Yeah.
habits. And so that's really what it's about, is these little small changes that you do day in and day
Hmm.
out that feel like they're not doing anything, but then they're actually the things that will get us in a healthier place, get us closer to our goal.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
So we mentioned in episode 48 that we created a quiz for you. So that is still available. So you can go and take this quiz because, like Holly said, maybe you need a little help figuring out, which area is your biggest struggle. I mean, maybe it's easy for you to know right off the bat, but if you want to just take the quiz, you can find out where you should be focusing, and then we will hopefully have some ways that you can improve in those different areas of wellness. So you can go to estherlittlefield.com/wellness to take that quiz. So let's wrap up with our question of the day, Holly. And we have an interesting one for today. So the question is, if a movie was being made of your life and you could choose the actor or actress to play you, who would you choose and why?
okay. So you guys are going to laugh at my answer, but I don't care. Because it's my movie.
That's right.
I would choose one of two people. I'm not sure which. Melissa McCarthy is one of them. And the other one is Katie Mixon. So you may not know who Katie Mixon is. She is the actress who is in the TV show American Housewife. And my family laughs hysterically at that show because she is me. Now, granted, she's me to a little bit more of an extreme, but she is me. And I
Okay.
think that both of those women are just funny and full of life and just kind of have a lot of my sense of humor. And so I would definitely choose both of them. And they kind of, I mean, they sort of look like I sort of look like them, or they look like
Okay.
me. I don't know.
They would do a good job portraying Holly
Yes,
Kane,
they would.
the life, the legend. I don't know if they have as good of a laugh as you though.
I
So,
don't know, but they would be required to do some pretty crazy things to,
oh.
yeah. We won't talk about that right now. But anyway, okay, Esther, what person would you choose to play you in your movie of
Okay,
your life?
so I am going with Meg Ryan
Yes.
because I love her as an actress, and I don't know. I guess I feel like maybe we have similar qualities,
Yeah, I think
characteristics.
you do.
Yeah, I just loved her in You've Got Mail. That's like one of my favorite
Hmm.
movies. And there were sections of what she was doing when she was sick and stuff that it was like exactly like
Hmm.
me.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, that is who I would choose.
I think that's a
Yeah,
great choice.
yeah.
Eh,
I just haven't gotten the plastic surgery that
no.
she's gotten. So I would choose her from like 20 years
Yeah.
ago, maybe.
Yeah. I think one of the reasons too that you might resonate with that movie is because you know how they read the narratives, like they read the emails as like a
Hmm.
narrator type in that movie. It's sort of very like their own like journal of their sort of relationship, and you really like journaling. And so,
That's
like, I
true.
know that might sound like a stretch, but the dots are totally connecting in my mind.
Okay. I also just really love her hair.
Yes, she's
And
very good.
I am on a journey to make my hair like get better and do better things and not be a big frizz ball. So I've always just loved her hair.
Yeah.
So,
Hashtag
yeah.
hair goals.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, we are going to wrap up for today. So thank you so much for listening. If you stuck around to the end, again, we always appreciate the people who listen right to the end because we love you. So you're special. And if you do, come on into the Facebook group
Yes.
because, again, we love talking about the episodes in the Facebook group. And I don't think we have mentioned this recently. So I just want to say that if you want to join the group, go to estherlittlefield.com/group. Make sure that you answer the
Yeah.
questions. The reason I have questions on the group is because we try to keep out spammers. We try to keep out people that aren't actually there for the purpose of talking about leadership as a Christian
Yeah.
woman. So please just take a second, answer the quick questions, and we will admit you into the group. But this is the perfect place if you're looking for a little bit more connection with other women just like you. This is the place to do it. Right inside that group is where we can get a little bit more deep. You can share your opinions, your thoughts about these topics, and we love hearing from you. So we would love to have you there. Thanks for joining us on the Christian Woman Leadership Podcast. If you're looking for additional support, growth, and accountability to take action, I would love to invite you to check out the Confident Leader Club. We only open the doors a few times a year, so you can jump on the wait list right now so that you're the first to know when the doors open. Or if we happen to be open when you're listening, you'll be able to join right away. I can't wait to see you on the inside. Now, don't forget, your leadership matters, and it's time for you to embrace your gifts and lead with confidence.